All right, so my name is Melody. I am from the North Shore Library in Glendale, Wisconsin, and we have with us today Kari from Compassus. Hi, Kari.
Hi.
Welcome, and she's going to be presenting on advanced directives. And we are recording this presentation, and we will be posting it on the library's YouTube page afterwards. It should be up within the next week or week and a half. So without further ado, I'm going to turn my camera off, and Kari, take it away.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I'm going to go through some slides and then we can answer any questions. And I'd like to talk about why it is important to have advanced directives in place. So I'm going to go through these slides. We can talk about them and then answer any questions. Move this out of the way. Okay, so this is kind of a little story of why I found out the importance of advanced directives. My brother at age 45, he was rushed to the hospital. He survived a heart attack at that time, but they knew his heart was weak and he was told likely that he'd have future heart attacks. I knew at this time I needed to talk to my brother about his wishes. And, you know, he would make statements such as, I don't want to live as a vegetable. Well, what does that really mean? I wasn't sure exactly what those statements meant and how I could make his wishes followed. I knew that he needed to complete his advanced directives. My brother and I had this difficult discussion, but I was clear on what my brother wanted when it came to his healthcare wishes. If we fast forward a year from then, my brother had another heart attack. This time he was put into a coma. His organs began to fail. He was on life support, tube feeding, dialysis. But I knew what my brother's wishes were. And that, they told me he could improve. So he started to come out of the coma. He improved with some therapy and he returned home. After he consulted with his doctors, he found his prognosis wasn't great. So at that time, he did change his advanced directives and changed himself to DNR. Years went by, my brother turned 50 years old, and I got a call that he had another heart attack. This time he had hit his head on the cement, so I headed to the hospital. I, get calls from families, don't let him die, don't do this. But I knew what my brother had, and he had advanced directives in place. I had the peace of knowing I did not have to make these decisions on my own. When I arrived, that he was clear with his advanced directives and they were in place. He ended up that he was brain dead upon me getting there, but I was able to call family members. I was able to let them know that I was following his wishes, and he was able to be taken off the ventilator and passed away peacefully. That is when I really understood why it was so important to have advanced directives in place. I was clear on what his wishes were. I didn't have to make those difficult choices, and I didn't have to make those choices and then always wonder if they were the correct choices. What would you or your loved ones do? If you think about the story I just talked about with my brother, or if you've known of other types of stories that are similar, if you had to face a similar situation and had no advanced directives in place, what would you do? What would you want other loved ones to do? So if you think about, what do you want your loved ones to know? What do you hope your loved ones would do? And have you discussed your preferences for end of life and healthcare with anyone? And then think about it. Is it important to live your life consistent with your own personal goals and values? In reaching our final stages of this journey, would you want to maintain these goals and values? Most people would say yes. So how can we make sure you live your life with dignity until the moment of death? You have your wishes and preferences documented. You communicate your wishes and preferences with your loved ones. So there are several different types of forms to document your wishes. Some of these I'm just going to briefly go through, and some I'll get in a little more detail. There's what's called a Declaration of Healthcare Professionals. It's also living will, it's called. Power of attorney for healthcare. There's also an authorization for final disposition instructions. Power of attorney for finances. And then we also have your emergency care do not resuscitate, otherwise people know as the DNR form. So there's two major types of written advance directives for healthcare. You have the Declaration of Healthcare Professionals, otherwise known as a living will, and you have a power of attorney for healthcare. So what is the difference with these two? The living will is only valid if you're unable to communicate your wishes regarding your end of life-sustaining types of procedures. Where a healthcare power of attorney, it gives you a place to document who you would like to give the ability to make decisions for you regarding your healthcare. These decisions apply to both the end of life treatment as well as other areas of medical care. This form also has to be what's called activated, which means 2 doctors sign off that you're not capable of making healthcare decisions anymore. So when this form is completed, it's not automatically put in place until doctors have decided that you cannot make those decisions on your own. The authorization for final disposition instructions. This form is actually a form that allows you to designate who you would like as your representative to make any funeral arrangements. It gives you a place to document your preferences for your final disposition and funeral services. They also have a power of attorney for finances. When this is completed, you're giving a designee, in addition to yourself, the rights to handle your finances and your property. It goes into effect immediately once it's completed, unless specified. We always tell everybody their financial situations are different and they might want to consult with either attorney or tax advisors and so forth. An emergency care do not resuscitate order, or otherwise known as a DNR form. This is a legal do not resuscitate order. If this is your wish, it has to be completed and signed by you, a legal guardian or activated power of attorney for healthcare. It must also be signed by the attending healthcare professional, your doctor. You can change your decision at any time. It is also recommended, and a lot of people overlook this, is to get a metal DNR bracelet. There's a link to where you can order those DNR bracelets once you have the forms completed. Now, once you have your advance directives for healthcare documents completed, what do you do with them? So once your advance directives for healthcare documents are completed, you need to share them. This may include sharing them with your family members, close friends, clergy, your primary care provider, and especially important is whoever you appointed as your designee. You need to keep a copy in a safe place, but remember your advance directives for healthcare are documents that should not be locked up and not shared. They need to be readily available in case something would happen, that people have that document. A lot of other people realize it's also recommended that you keep a note in your purse or wallet that states you have advance directives in place, who has access to a copy, and their phone number. I found this really important. When I was getting calls regarding my brother, they weren't sure, he was at a different hospital at this time, if he had advance directives in place. So that was really important that he was able to have that information on him, that he had this advance directives in place and who to call. It's a very important conversation to talk with your family and friends about what your wishes are. These conversations are often very difficult to start. Conversations bring up emotions and people's fears regarding illness and end of life. But the conversation is very important. You want your loved ones and the person you choose as your designee to have a clear understanding of what your wishes are. End of life is not just physical, clinical experience. It is emotional, it's social, and for some, spiritual. This is also true for your loved ones going through these experiences with you. So helping your loved ones face these difficult decisions, having your wishes in place takes this emotional burden and confusion about making the right choices off of your loved ones. It can put them at ease because they are not having to make the decisions, they are following your wishes. Where can you find the advanced directive forms? I put the link. You can find these forms online through the Wisconsin Department of Human Services. You can also check at your doctor's office for advanced, your power of attorney documents for healthcare. You want to make sure you read the instructions and the documents you're completing, and make sure you thoroughly understand what these mean and the importance of them. I think the hardest part is always starting the conversation with our loved ones. I've had those conversations with loved ones and they're like, oh, you're not dying, we don't need to talk about it. Well, these documentations are set up so that we can talk about these things prior to having to make those difficult decisions before it's complicated to have to decide on what's going on. So we make these decisions when we are of sound mind, we know what our choices are, and that's when we document it. Many people wait till they're sick, but it's much easier to do it earlier in life. And I found it was so important, I actually gave advanced directives out for my family to fill out at Christmas time, because it's a wonderful gift to give to your family. Just to take that emotional thing about making sure we're making the right choices for our loved ones. So if you have any questions regarding advanced directives, specific questions, I know one question I get all the time is when a power of attorney is put in place, people automatically think that that paperwork is followed. With a power of attorney for healthcare, 2 doctors have to sign off, which is called activation. So they're activating that power of attorney, which they're saying this person no longer can comprehend and understand their healthcare decisions and are allowing this designee to make these decisions. When filling out the forms, there's a primary designee, and then there's usually there's a secondary. You don't have to have a secondary, but is really recommended in case that primary they cannot get a hold of, or something would happen with that person. They have a second person to be able to go to. We don't want to just fill the documents. We want to have those conversations with our loved ones. Sit down, have ongoing conversations. I filled out the documents when I was in my 20s, and then I filled them out again in my 40s because my life changed, my choices changed, my views on things changed for my healthcare. In 10 years ago from now, they may change again. I may want to change my forms again. They're not set in concrete. You can change them as you decide you want things different for your healthcare. But they're very important and helps families tremendously with those difficult situations. If anybody has questions, we can do that. That is the end of my slideshows. It's just kind of basic, so we can get into questions.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording here so that, oh, sorry, move this microphone up. I'm gonna stop the recording so that you're free to, if you wanna ask your questions on the microphone or on the screen. So let's pause that. Thank you very much, Kari.
Oh, no problem.